You know, I have seen a lot of stupid decisions in my 73 cycles serving the Galactic Council. A lot. Like enough to fill 16 data cubes worth of terrible, awful, catastrophically bad judgment calls. But this took the ceremonial cake, ate it, and then asked for seconds. Let me set the stage for you. My name is Veko. I am a mid-level diplomatic aide for the Vren Collective, which basically means I stand behind important people, nod at appropriate moments, and occasionally prevent galactic wars by making sure everyone has the right temperature beverages. It is not glamorous, but someone has to do it. The Vrene, if you are not familiar, are what you might call the bureaucratic backbone of the known galaxy. We are tall, blue-skinned, have 4 arms, which makes multitasking a breeze, and we pride ourselves on being the reasonable ones in any given room. When the Krullah want to blow up a planet because someone looked at their queen funny, we are the ones who step in with treaties and compromise. When the Thoraxians decide they want exclusive mining rights to an entire nebula, we draft the contracts. You get the idea. So naturally, when the Yalthan Empire decided to wage war against the smaller border colonies in the Outer Rim, it fell to us to mediate. Again, for the 5th time. In 3 solar cycles. The Yalthans are, how do I put this delicately, absolutely massive jerks. They are 7 feet tall, covered in scales that could deflect most standard plasma weapons, and they have this charming habit of eating species they consider beneath them, which, in their opinion, is everyone. Their empire spans 42 systems, and they have been expanding aggressively for the past decade. The Council keeps trying to rein them in through diplomacy, which is like trying to stop a meteor with a strongly worded letter. This particular conflict started when the Yalthans claimed that 3 colony worlds in Sector 98 belonged to them due to some ancient treaty that probably never existed. The colonies, populated mostly by Mirran settlers, politely told them where they could shove their treaty. The Yalthans responded by parking their warfleet in orbit and demanding surrender. Standard procedure. Boring even. What made this situation different? What made it absolutely buck-wild insane was the human. Now let me tell you about humans. They showed up on the galactic stage about 40 standard years ago, acting like they owned the place despite having exactly 1 planet and some barely functional FTL drives they probably stole from a crashed freighter. They applied for council membership, got laughed out of the chamber, and then stubbornly opened trade relations anyway. Most species considered them a curiosity at best, an annoyance at worst. They were small, squishy, had no natural weapons to speak of, and died if you looked at them wrong. Their homeworld, Earth, was a death world by most standards, but they were so fragile it seemed impossible they had evolved there at all. The general consensus was that humans were harmless, if persistent. They had this weird thing about friendship and making deals and never ever giving up, even when giving up was clearly the smart move. It was almost endearing, like watching a small creature try to fight a predator 10 times its size. You root for them, but you know how it ends. The Council, in its infinite wisdom, decided to send Ambassador Prin to mediate the Yalthan situation. Prin was old, experienced, and had successfully negotiated 67 treaties in his career. He was also, and I say this with great respect, boring as hell. He could talk for 6 hours about tariff regulations without taking a breath. Perfect for wearing down aggressive species until they agreed to anything just to make him stop. Then Prin's shuttle got vaporized by a random meteor strike 2 days before the negotiation. Panic ensued. We needed someone immediately. Someone with diplomatic credentials, someone the Yalthans would not immediately eat, and someone stupid enough to volunteer for what was essentially a suicide mission. Enter Marcus Vale, human diplomat. I first met Marcus Vale in the Council's emergency briefing room, which was really just a converted storage bay because the actual briefing room was being fumigated after a Sluggoth delegation left questionable residue everywhere. He was sitting in a chair that was way too big for him, looking completely unbothered by the fact that he was surrounded by aliens who could crush him accidentally, and reading something on a small device he called a tablet. "You are the human diplomat?" I asked, trying to keep the skepticism out of my voice and failing miserably. He looked up. Humans have 2 eyes, which always creeps me out, but his were this weird greenish color that seemed to catch the light. He smiled, showing those flat little teeth humans have. "Marcus Vale, at your service. And you are?" "Veko, diplomatic aide. I will be accompanying you to the negotiation." "Great," he said, standing up. He was maybe 5.5 feet tall, which meant he came up to about my mid-torso. He extended his hand. Humans love their handshakes. I awkwardly reached down with one of my lower arms and grasped it. His grip was surprisingly firm. "You understand the situation?" I asked. "The Yalthans are not known for their patience, or their tolerance, or their willingness to not eat diplomats they find annoying." "I've read the briefing," Marcus said cheerfully. "Sounds like a fun time." "Don't worry, Veko. I have dealt with difficult negotiations before." "Yes, but those negotiations probably did not involve a species that considers you an appetizer." He laughed, actually laughed, like I had told a joke. "Fair point. That is why I brought backup." That is when she walked in. The human female entered the room with the kind of confidence usually reserved for apex predators and battle commanders who have won 100 campaigns. She was slightly taller than Marcus, maybe 5'9", with dark hair pulled back into what I later learned was called a ponytail. She wore black clothing that looked tactical, all pockets and straps and reinforced panels, and she moved with this fluid grace that made my instincts scream danger. She was also carrying enough weapons to outfit a small strike team. "This is Tessa Kane," Marcus said, gesturing casually. "My personal security." I stared. Then I stared some more. "You brought a bodyguard?" "Well, yes," Marcus said, as if this was the most obvious thing in the universe. "You just said they might eat me." "Seems like the kind of situation where you want someone watching your back." "But she is human," I said, because apparently my brain had decided to just stop working entirely. "She is as small as you. How is she supposed to protect you from Yalthans?" Tessa Kane looked at me. Her eyes were dark brown, almost black, and they had this intensity that made me want to take a step back. When she spoke, her voice was calm and level, with just a hint of amusement. "I appreciate your concern, but size is not everything in a fight. The Yalthans are 7 feet tall. They have scales. They have claws. You have what? Those small metal things." I gestured at the various weapons strapped to her body. "Guns," she corrected, "and knives, and a few other surprises, but mostly I have training and experience. Fought in the Mars conflict, did 3 tours on Titan Station during the Separatist uprising, and spent 2 years doing private security for corporate executives in places that made Yalthun space look like a vacation resort." I looked at Marcus. Marcus just smiled. "Tessa is very good at her job." "This is insane," I muttered. "The Council is going to vaporize me for allowing this." "The Council is desperate," Marcus pointed out. "Otherwise they would not have hired me. Besides, what is the worst that could happen?" "Oh, you sweet, naive little human. Let me count the ways." The flight to the negotiation site took 6 hours aboard a Council transport ship. The Yalthans had insisted on neutral ground, which in this case meant a decommissioned trading station orbiting a dead star. Very dramatic. Very ominous. Definitely the kind of place where treaties get signed, and definitely not where people mysteriously disappear forever. Marcus spent most of the flight reviewing documents and making notes. Tessa spent the entire time doing what she called maintenance on her weapons, which involved disassembling them, cleaning every piece with disturbing care, and putting them back together with the kind of speed that suggested she could do it blindfolded. Probably in the dark, while being shot at. I spent the flight trying not to have a panic attack. "So," I said during one of the brief moments when Tessa was not actively handling something that could kill me, "what exactly is your plan if the Yalthans attack?" She looked up from the knife she was sharpening. It was a wicked-looking blade, about 8 inches long, with a slight curve to it. "Depends on how they attack." "That is not reassuring." "Not meant to be reassuring," she said. "Meant to be honest. If they attack with weapons, I respond with weapons. If they attack physically, I respond physically. If they try to take Marcus hostage, I extract him. If they try to kill him, I kill them first." "You cannot kill a Yalthan," I said flatly. "Their scales are too thick. Standard plasma weapons barely scratch them." She smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Who said anything about standard weapons?" Marcus glanced over from his reading. "Tessa has a rather extensive collection of, shall we say, specialized equipment. Turns out humans have gotten very good at killing things that are bigger and stronger than us. Long nicky of it, actually. Very educational." "I hate this," I announced to no one in particular. "I hate everything about this situation." "Noted," Marcus said, turning back to his documents. We docked at the station right on schedule. The place was exactly as depressing as I imagined, dim lighting, creaking bulkheads, the faint smell of recycled air that had been recycled a few too many times. Perfect spot for a diplomatic disaster. The Yalthan delegation was already waiting in the main conference chamber. There were 5 of them, all massive, all looking like they could bite through a bulkhead if they felt like it. Their leader was a particularly large specimen named Gorlix, who had personally led the fleet that was currently blockading the colony worlds. He had scales the color of dried blood and eyes like a predator that had just spotted prey. When we entered, all 5 Yalthans turned to look at us. Then they started laughing. It was not a nice laugh. It was the kind of laugh you hear right before something terrible happens. Deep, rumbling, and full of genuine amusement at what they clearly considered a cosmic joke. "This is what the Council sends?" Gorlix said, his voice like gravel in a metal drum. "A Vren bureaucrat and 2 snacks?" The other Yalthans thought this was hilarious. They kept laughing, this horrible hissing sound that made my skin crawl. Marcus, to his credit, did not even flinch. He walked right up to the negotiation table, set down his tablet, and sat in the chair that was, once again, way too big for him. Ambassador Marcus Vale, representing the Galactic Council. "Shall we begin?" Gorlix stopped laughing. He leaned forward, his massive bulk making the table creak. "You are either very brave or very stupid, little human. Why not both?" Marcus said pleasantly. "Now, regarding the territorial dispute in Sector 98, I have reviewed the treaty you cited as legal justification for your claim. The one from, let me check my notes, 600 years ago. Yes, I have to say, it is fascinating reading. It grants us rightful ownership." Gorlix growled. "It grants you trading rights," Marcus corrected. "Specifically the right to trade agricultural products with the colony that existed at the time. That colony, by the way, was abandoned 400 years ago due to a plague. The current settlements were established by the Mirring under proper council colonization protocols. So unless you are planning to argue that the right to trade root vegetables 6 centuries ago somehow translates to total planetary ownership, we might have a problem with your legal theory." I wanted to kiss that beautiful, insane human. He had just dismantled the entire Yalthan claim in under 30 seconds. Gorlix, naturally, did not take this well. He stood up, all 7 feet of scaled fury, and slammed his claws on the table. "You dare question the Yalthan Empire?" "I dare question bad paperwork," Marcus said calmly. "Comes with the job." That is when things got exciting. And by exciting I mean terrifying. One of the other Yalthans, a particularly mean-looking brute with a scar across his snout, moved toward Marcus with clear intent. Not subtle intent, very obvious. "I am going to hurt you now" intent. Tessa was faster. I did not even see her move. 1 second she was standing behind Marcus, hands relaxed at her sides. The next second she was between Marcus and the Yalthan, one hand resting on what looked like a small cylinder attached to her belt. "That is close enough," she said quietly. The Yalthan laughed. "Or what, tiny thing? You will bleed at me, or I will demonstrate why humans are considered a death world species," Tessa said. Her voice had not changed, still calm, still level, but there was something in her tone that made every survival instinct I had start screaming. The Yalthan reached for her. What happened next took maybe 3 seconds, but I am going to remember it for the rest of my life. Tessa moved. She ducked under the Yalthan's reaching claw, pulled that cylinder from her belt, and there was a sharp crack sound. The cylinder extended into a full staff about 4 feet long, with some kind of energy field crackling along its length. She spun, fast as lightning, and struck the Yalthan across the back of his knee. The Yalthan, this 7-foot-tall armored predator, went down like someone had cut his strings. Before anyone could react, Tessa had the staff pressed against his throat, right in the small gap between his helmet scales and his chest plates. The energy field made this buzzing sound that promised extremely bad things. "Stay down," she suggested. The Yalthan wisely stayed down. Gorlix and the other 3 Yalthans stared. I stared. Marcus calmly continued reading his notes. "Now then," Marcus said, not even looking up. "Where were we?" "Oh yes. The legal problems with your territorial claim. I have prepared a counter-proposal that I think you will find more than reasonable. It involves the Yalthan Empire withdrawing your fleet, the colonies agreeing to favorable trade terms with your empire, and everyone walking away without having to file incident reports that would take months to process. Sound good? Gorlix found his voice. It came out as more of a strangled hiss. Your human just attacked my officer. Your officer attacked first, Marcus said, finally looking up. Tessa was simply ensuring my safety, as is her job. Now, do you want to discuss the treaty, or do you want to continue testing whether my bodyguard can take all 5 of you? Because I will be honest, Gorlix, I have seen her fight. My money is on Tessa. The Yalthan, who was still on the floor, groaned. Tessa had not moved the staff from his throat. Gorlix's eyes narrowed. You threaten the Yalthan Empire? I am offering you a peaceful resolution that saves face for everyone, Marcus said. You get trade rights, which is probably what you wanted in the first place. The colonies get to stay independent, which is what they want. The Council gets to avoid a war, which is what they want. And I get to file a successful negotiation report, which is what I want. Everybody wins. The alternative is that this turns into an actual fight, and trust me when I say that you do not want to see how creative humans get when properly motivated. There was a long, tense silence. The only sound was the humming of Tessa's staff and the labored breathing of the Yalthan on the floor. Then Gorlix laughed. It was a different laugh this time. Less predatory, more genuine. You have spine, little human. I will give you that. And your guard has skill. This is unexpected. We are a species of surprises, Marcus agreed. Do we have a deal? Gorlix looked at his officers, then at Tessa, who still had not moved, then back at Marcus. Show me this proposal of yours. Tessa stepped back, letting the Yalthan scramble to his feet. He looked humiliated and furious, but he did not try anything else. Probably because Tessa kept that staff extended and ready. The next 2 hours were actually pretty boring. Marcus and Gorlix haggled over trade percentages and shipping routes and tariff regulations. I provided supporting documentation when requested. Tessa stood perfectly still, watching everyone with those dark eyes, staff still in hand. Eventually they reached an agreement. Gorlix would withdraw the fleet. The colonies would open preferred trade channels with the Yalthan Empire. Everyone would file the appropriate paperwork. Crisis averted. We were packing up to leave when Gorlix approached Marcus one last time. Your species interests me, human. Perhaps we underestimated you. Most people do, Marcus said cheerfully. We are used to it. That one, Gorlix nodded at Tessa. Where did you find her? Earth, Marcus said. We have about 8 billion more where she came from. Some even better trained. Gorlix actually looked disturbed by this information. The Council should have warned us. The Council probably does not know, Marcus said. We are still pretty new to all this galactic politics stuff. Give us time. We will grow on you. We made it back to the transport without further incident. As soon as we were aboard and the airlock sealed, I collapsed into the nearest chair and tried to remember how to breathe properly. That went well, Marcus said. Well, I squeaked. Well, we almost started a war. But we did not, Marcus pointed out. Instead, we ended a conflict, established trade agreements, and demonstrated that humans can handle themselves in diplomatic situations. I call that a win. Tessa was already disassembling her staff and putting it back in its holster. The big one, Gorlix, he was testing you. Wanted to see if you would break. I noticed, Marcus said. Fairly standard intimidation tactic. The attack was predictable too. They always try physical threats when legal arguments fail.
You knew they would attack?
I demanded. Suspected strongly. Marcus said. That is why I brought Tessa. Like I said, back up. You are both insane, I muttered. Completely, utterly insane. Tessa smiled. That same not nice smile from before. You say that like it is a bad thing. The return flight gave me time to process what I had witnessed. I kept replaying the moment when Tessa took down that Yalthan. It should not have been possible. Everything we knew about species compatibility said that humans were too small, too weak, too fragile to fight larger species. But she had done it anyway. Easily. Can I ask you something? I said to Tessa, who was back to cleaning her weapons. Sure. How did you do that? The Yalthan. I mean, he should have crushed you. She considered the question for a moment, then set down the gun she was working on. You are thinking about it wrong. You see a 7-foot-tall armored predator and assume he wins any fight. He is bigger, but size is only one factor. Speed matters. Leverage matters. Knowing anatomy matters. I hit him in the weakest part of his knee joint, the spot where the scales are thinner and the ligaments are vulnerable. Put enough force in the right place, and it does not matter how big you are. You go down. Like you are so small compared to him. Yeah, she agreed, which means he underestimated me. He assumed he could grab me without consequences. That is a mistake. On Earth, we learned a long time ago that the biggest predator does not always win. Sometimes the smart predator wins. Sometimes the fast predator wins. Sometimes the predator with the right tools wins. Earth sounds terrifying. She grinned. It has its moments, but it teaches you to adapt, to think, to survive. Humans are not the strongest species on our own planet, not the fastest, not the toughest, but we are persistent, creative. We do not give up. And we have gotten very, very good at making things that help us win fights we should not be able to win. Like that staff. Like that staff, she confirmed. Collapsible alloy core, electromagnetic pulse field, balanced for one-handed or two-handed use, can break bones, disrupt electronics, and deliver a shock strong enough to drop most species. Weighs less than 2 pounds, fits on my belt. Human engineering at its finest. Marcus looked over from his endless paperwork. Humans are tool users. Veko, it is kind of our thing. We take a problem, figure out what would solve it and build something to make that solution work. Then we iterate, improve, adapt. It is why we went from bronze spears to spacecraft in a few thousand years. Most species take millions of years to develop spaceflight, I said weakly. Most species did not have to compete with everything on their planet trying to kill them, Marcus said. Evolutionary pressure makes you innovative or extinct. We chose innovative. I sat with that for a while, watching this small human female calmly maintain weapons that could probably level a building, thinking about this small human male who had just out-negotiated a species famous for getting their way through intimidation, wondering what exactly the galaxy had gotten itself into when humanity decided to join the larger community. The Council needs to know about this, I finally said. About humans, about what you can actually do. They think you are harmless. We are harmless, Marcus said. Right up until we are not. But honestly, Veko, we prefer the harmless route. Peace is easier, more profitable, less messy. It is just good to have options when peace does not work out. The Yalthans will talk, I said. Word will spread. Good, Tessa said. Maybe next time someone will think twice before trying to eat a human diplomat. Or they will see you as a threat, I pointed out. Challenge, something to prove themselves against. Marcus and Tessa exchanged a look. Then they both smiled. Let them try, Marcus said quietly. And somehow, in that moment, sitting in that cramped transport heading back to Council space, I believed him. I had no idea that this was just the beginning. So, funny thing about galactic politics. News travels fast, really fast. Especially when that news involves a species everyone thought was harmless suddenly proving they are anything but. It took exactly 4 standard days for the entire Council to hear about what happened at the negotiation station. By day 5, half the known galaxy had heard some version of the story. By day 7, there were at least 15 different versions circulating, each more ridiculous than the last. My personal favorite was the one claiming Tessa had killed all 5 Yolthans with her bare hands while Marcus signed the treaty in their blood. Completely false, obviously, but it had a certain dramatic flair I could appreciate. The actual truth was bad enough. A human bodyguard, barely over 5 feet tall, had taken down a fully grown Yalthan warrior in under 3 seconds. Then held him there while her charge calmly out-negotiated the entire Yalthan delegation. The Yalthan Empire, which had been terrorizing border colonies for months, had withdrawn their fleet without firing a single shot. The Council was thrilled. Terrified, but thrilled. They immediately wanted Marcus for every difficult negotiation they had backlogged, which was approximately 237 cases, last I checked. Marcus politely declined most of them, said he needed rest. Vacation time. Something about humans requiring downtime or they stopped functioning properly. I did not blame him. After that negotiation, I needed about 3 cycles of sleep and several strong drinks. But the galaxy, as it turns out, does not care about your rest requirements. 2 weeks after the Yalthan incident, I was sitting in my small office at Council headquarters, trying to catch up on the absolutely absurd amount of paperwork that had piled up when my communication terminal started flashing red. Red is never good. Red means emergency. Red means drop everything and pay attention right now. I opened the channel. Echo here. The face that appeared on screen was High Counselor Mara, a thoraxian with mandibles that clicked when she was stressed. They were clicking very rapidly. Echo. We have a situation. Is the human diplomat still on station? Marcus? Yes, I think so. He was scheduled to leave tomorrow. Why? Get him to conference room Alpha immediately. Bring his security specialist too. We have, how do I phrase this delicately, a rather significant problem. How significant? Her mandibles clicked faster. Warfleet. Significant. Multiple species. Potentially galaxy-ending significant. Move quickly, Vaco. The channel closed. I sat there for approximately 5 seconds processing what I had just heard, then I grabbed my datapad and ran. I found Marcus in the station's observation deck, of all places, just standing there looking out at the stars. Tessa was nearby reading something on her tablet, always within protective distance, but giving him space. They both looked remarkably calm for people who were about to be dragged into another crisis. We need to go, I said, slightly out of breath because running is not something Vorthren are built for. High Counselor Mara Conference Room Alpha. Now. She said something about a war fleet. Marcus turned, and I swear his eyes lit up, actually lit up, like he was excited. War fleet? Whose? She did not specify, just said multiple species and potentially galaxy ending. Sounds interesting, Marcus said. He looked at Tessa. You ready? She closed her tablet, stood up, and checked the various weapons I now knew were concealed all over her body. Always.
You are both deeply disturbed individuals, I muttered.
You keep saying that, Marcus replied cheerfully. I am starting to think you mean it as a compliment. Conference room Alpha was packed. Every major council member was there, along with military advisors, intelligence officers, and several species I did not even recognize. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a vibroblade. High Counselor Mara stood at the head of the table, her mandibles still clicking away. Next to her was General Cross, a Krell warrior with enough battle scars to write a history book on his carapace. When we entered, every head turned. Ah, the human, Mira said. Thank you for coming so quickly. We have a situation that requires your particular brand of diplomatic intervention. I am listening, Marcus said, taking a seat. Tessa remained standing behind him, scanning the room with those dark eyes. Mara activated the hollow display in the center of the table. A star map appeared, showing a cluster of systems on the far edge of council space. Then red icons started appearing. A lot of red icons. An alarming number of red icons. 48 hours ago, Mara began. The Draxan hegemony assembled a war fleet of unprecedented size, 200 capital ships, 500 support vessels, and an estimated 50,000 fighters. They are currently positioned at the edge of the neutral zone, demanding immediate surrender of the Callus cluster. Why do they want the cluster? Marcus asked. Resources, primarily. General Cross rumbled. The cluster contains 17 planets rich in viridium, which is essential for advanced energy weapons. Also, it is strategically positioned. Control the cluster, and you control access to 3 major trade routes. And the Draxans are not subtle about taking what they want. Mara added, they have given the colonists 72 hours to evacuate before they begin orbital bombardment. That was 2 days ago. We have less than 24 hours. Why not send the Council Defense Fleet? Marcus asked. The room got very quiet. Uncomfortably quiet. The Council Defense Fleet is currently scattered across 8 different sectors dealing with pirate activity and border disputes, Mara said slowly. We could not assemble enough ships to match the Draxan fleet in the time we have. Even if we could, the Draxans have formed an alliance. The Targesh Collective, the Vroth Dominion, and the Salvex Coalition have all pledged support. We would be outnumbered 3-1 minimum. So you want me to negotiate, Marcus said. The Draxan Supreme Commander, Warmaster Threx, has agreed to meet with a council representative before beginning the bombardment. Mara confirmed. As a courtesy, 1 meeting. 1 chance to avoid a war that will almost certainly spread across multiple sectors and result in millions of casualties. No pressure, I muttered. Marcus leaned back in his chair, thinking. The room waited. Even Tessa seemed interested in what he would say. "What leverage do we have?" Marcus finally asked. "Leverage?" General Cross barked a laugh. "We have no leverage. They have the fleet. They have the allies. They have the position. We have strongly worded objections and a treaty they are clearly willing to violate." "There is always leverage," Marcus said. "You just have to find it. What does War Master Threx want besides the cluster?" "Respect," Mara said quietly. "The Draxans have long felt that the Council does not take them seriously, that we dismiss their territorial claims and expansion goals as the ravings of a militant species. They want to be feared." "Fear and respect are not the same thing," Marcus observed. "Try explaining that to a Draxan." General Cross muttered. Marcus looked at Tessa. She gave a tiny nod so subtle I almost missed it. Some kind of silent communication passed between them. "Okay," Marcus said. "I will meet with War Master Threx. Under 3 conditions." Mara's mandibles stopped clicking. "You are in no position to make demands, Ambassador Vale." "Sure I am," Marcus said pleasantly. "You came to me. That means you think I can do something your other diplomats cannot. So 3 conditions. First, the meeting happens on neutral ground, not on his flagship where he has all the advantages." "Reasonable," Mara conceded. "Second, I bring my security specialist." He nodded toward Tessa. "The Draxans will see that as an insult, a challenge." "Good," Marcus said. "Let them. Which brings me to condition 3. I want full discretionary authority to negotiate any terms I see fit, up to and including Council military commitments, trade agreements, and territorial concessions." The room erupted. Council members started shouting over each other in at least 9 different languages. General Cross looked like he wanted to throw Marcus out an airlock. Mara just stared, mandibles frozen mid-click. "You want carte blanche to promise anything?" she finally said. "I want the tools to make a deal that sticks," Marcus corrected. "I cannot negotiate effectively if I have to run every concession by committee. Threx will know I am stalling. The whole thing falls apart. Give me the authority, and I will end this without a shot being fired." "And if you fail?" Marcus smiled, that human smile. The one that suggested he knew something everyone else did not. "I will not fail." "That is remarkably confident for someone your size," General Cross growled. "Size is not everything," Tessa said quietly. Several people in the room flinched. Word had definitely spread about what she could do. Mara looked around the room, gauging reactions. Then she clicked her mandibles once, sharply. "Fine, you have your authority. But Veko goes with you as Council observer." "What?" I said. "No. Absolutely not. I already almost died once dealing with homicidal aliens. I am not doing it again." "Yes, you are," Mara said firmly. "You filed the report on the Yalthan negotiation. You witnessed how the humans operate. You provide continuity. You go." I looked at Marcus, silently begging him to object. He just grinned. "The more the merrier." "I hate you," I told him. "You keep saying that too," he replied. The meeting with War Master Threx was scheduled for 6 hours later at an abandoned mining facility in the neutral zone. Just enough time for me to update my will, send goodbye messages to my family, and contemplate every life choice that had led me to this moment. The transport ride was quieter this time. Marcus spent it reviewing everything we knew about Draxan culture, military doctrine, and War Master Threx specifically. Tessa spent it doing that weapon maintenance ritual again, which I was starting to realize was less about the weapons and more about focusing her mind. "Tell me about Draxans," Marcus said suddenly. I pulled up my datapad. Reptilian species, 8 to 9 feet tall. Thick hide, natural armor plating, extremely aggressive culture built around military prowess. Their entire social hierarchy is determined by combat victories. War Master Threx is their supreme military commander, which means he has personally defeated every challenger who wanted his position. He is not someone you negotiate with. He is someone you run from. "Running is not really our style," Tessa commented. "Your style is going to get us killed." I shot back. "Only if we lose," she said. "We do not lose." "Your confidence is terrifying." Marcus looked up from his reading. "Veko, I want you to understand something. Humans have been doing this, negotiating from positions of weakness for our entire history. We are very, very good at it. Sometimes, the trick is not having the biggest weapon, It is making the other side believe that fighting you will cost more than it is worth. The Draxons have 200 capital ships. I said slowly. You have Tessa. Exactly, Marcus said, as if that made perfect sense. The mining facility was as depressing as the last negotiation site. Cold metal corridors, flickering lights, and the kind of atmosphere that suggested terrible things had happened here and would probably happen again. Perfect. The Draxon delegation was already waiting. 6 warriors, each massive and armed, their scales glinting in the harsh lighting. And in the center, War Master Threx himself. He was a monster. 9 feet tall, covered in battle scars with cybernetic enhancements woven throughout his body. His eyes were a cold yellow reptilian slits that tracked our approach with predatory focus. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding stone. The Council sends of Renin 2 humans. This is your response to my fleet? War Master Threx, Marcus said, walking forward with that same casual confidence that probably should have gotten him killed a dozen times by now. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I am Ambassador Marcus Vale. This is my associate Veko, and my security specialist Tessa Kane. Threx looked at Tessa and laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. You bring a female as protection. The Council mocks me. The Council respects you enough to send their best negotiator, Marcus said calmly. As for Tessa, judging people by their appearance is a mistake I have seen many make, usually right before they regret it. Is that a threat, little human? It is an observation. Now shall we discuss terms? Threx's eyes narrowed. There are no terms. I have a fleet. I have allies. I have power. The Callus cluster is mine. The Council can accept this or I begin bombardment in 19 hours. The Council is prepared to discuss territorial adjustments, Marcus said. Mining rights, trade agreements, even limited sovereignty claims, but wholesale annexation is not on the table. Then we have nothing to discuss. Threx turned to leave. Wait, Marcus said. Not loud, not aggressive, just firm. I have a counter-proposal. Threx stopped, turned back. I am listening. You want the cluster because of the resources and strategic position. But really, what you want is for the Council to take the Draxon hegemony seriously. They treat you as a major power rather than a regional nuisance. Am I right? Several of the Draxon warriors hissed at the word nuisance. Threx's eyes blazed. Choose your next words carefully, human. I am being honest, Marcus said. The Council has dismissed your legitimate grievances for cycles. They have ignored your expansion needs, your resource requirements, your cultural imperatives. That changes today. I have full authority to negotiate a comprehensive agreement that addresses all of those issues. But I need you to walk away from the cluster. Why would I walk away when I can simply take it? Because taking it starts a war. Wars are expensive, messy, unpredictable. Even with your fleet, even with your allies, the Council will fight. Maybe you win, probably you win. But you will lose ships, soldiers, resources. And for what? 17 planets you will then have to garrison and defend against insurgencies for the next decade. Or, you work with me and you get something better. What could be better than conquest? Marcus pulled out his tablet, activated a holo display. Star charts appeared, showing dozens of unclaimed systems along the Council's outer borders. Recognition, legitimacy, official expansion territories granted by Council decree. Mining rights to systems richer than the cluster. Trade agreements that open markets across Council space. A seat at the table where real decisions get made. And most importantly, Threx stared at the display. I could see the calculations happening behind those reptilian eyes. The Council would never agree to this. I am the Council's representative with full negotiating authority. Marcus said, what I agree to, they agree to. That is how this works. So here is my offer. Stand down your fleet. Allow independent monitors to verify the withdrawal. In exchange, you get everything I just outlined, plus a formal apology from the Council for past diplomatic failures, plus a mutual defense pact that recognizes the Draxon hegemony as a Council ally. You would make us allies? Threx sounded skeptical. I would make you partners, Marcus corrected. The Council needs strong military allies. You have proven your strength. Why waste it fighting each other when there are bigger threats out there? Pirates, slavers, rogue AI collectives. The galaxy is a dangerous place. We should face it together. I watched this tiny human offer the War Master of the Draxan hegemony, commanding a fleet that could glass planets, a deal that actually made sense, that gave Threx what he really wanted without the cost of war. It was brilliant. It was insane. It was absolutely going to work. Except it did not. Threx studied the offer for a long moment. Then he smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. No. My heart sank. All 4 of them. No, Marcus said. Why not? Because I do not negotiate with prey, Threx said. The Draxans are warriors. We take what we want. We prove our strength through conquest. Your offer is generous, human. Under other circumstances, I might accept, but my warriors need this victory. They need to see that the hegemony cannot be bought or bargained with. They need blood. That is disappointing, Marcus said. He sounded genuinely sad about it. You have 18 hours before the bombardment begins, Threx said. I suggest you evacuate the colonies. At least you tried, little human. I will remember you fondly. He turned to leave again. His warriors followed. That is when Tessa spoke up. One question before you go, War Master. Threx paused. What? Have you ever fought a human? Threx turned fully around, confusion evident on his face. What? I asked if you have ever personally fought a human in combat, because you keep calling us prey, calling us little, acting like we are beneath you. I am curious if that is based on actual experience or just assumption. The temperature in the room dropped about 10 degrees. Every Draxan warrior focused on Tessa. Threx's eyes narrowed to slits. You dare challenge me? I dare ask a question, Tessa said calmly. If your warriors need to see strength, let them see it. You and me right here, right now. If I win, you accept the ambassador's deal. If you win, you get the cluster and we leave. One fight, 3 minutes. Winner takes all. No, I nearly shouted. Tessa, he will tear you apart. Probably not, she said, not taking her eyes off Threx. But maybe that is what makes it interesting. Marcus had not moved, had not said a word, but I saw something in his expression, calculation, trust, the absolute certainty that Tessa knew exactly what she was doing. Threx laughed again. You are serious. You actually think you can fight me? I think I can beat you, Tessa corrected, but there is only one way to find out. This is madness. One of the other Draxan warriors hissed. War Master, she is baiting you. I know, Threx said, but his eyes were gleaming now. The predatory focus had shifted into something else. Challenge. Excitement. Very well, little human. 3 minutes. No weapons. Pure combat. When I break you, your ambassador will witness what happens when prey forgets its place. 3 minutes, Tessa agreed. She started removing her weapons, placing them carefully on the table. Guns, knives, that staff, other things I could not even identify. No weapons. Just us, Tessa, Marcus said quietly. She looked at him. Trust me. Always, he replied. They cleared a space in the center of the room. Threx rolled his massive shoulders, his scales rippling with movement. He had at least 3 feet of height on Tessa, and probably 400 pounds of muscle and armor plating. It should not have been a fight. It should have been an execution. The timer started. Threx moved first, surprisingly fast for his size. He charged, intending to grab Tessa, and end this quickly. She was not there. She sidestepped, fluid as water, and drove her fist into the gap between his chest plates and his shoulder armor.
I heard something crack.
Threx roared, spinning faster than I thought possible, his massive arms sweeping out to catch her. She ducked under it, rolled, came up behind him, and kicked the back of his knee with enough force that he actually stumbled. The Draxan warriors were shouting now, not in anger, in amazement. Threx recovered, feinted left, then came in low and right. Tessa took the hit, let herself get grabbed, then used his own momentum against him. She twisted, locked his arm, and used some kind of leverage technique that flipped him right over her shoulder. All 9 feet and 1,000 pounds of Draxan Warmaster slammed into the metal floor with a resounding crash. 1 minute gone. Threx rolled to his feet, blood trickling from his mouth. He was not laughing anymore. He came at her again, disciplined now, using proper combat technique instead of just size and strength. They traded blows, A blur of movement almost too fast to follow. She was faster, more precise, but every hit she landed barely seemed to faze him. Every hit he landed should have ended the fight, but she rolled with them, deflected them, turned them into glancing blows. 2 minutes gone. They separated, circling each other. Both were breathing hard now. Tessa had blood on her lip where one of Threx's strikes had connected. Threx had gouges in his armor where her strikes had found weak points. "You fight well," Threx admitted. "Better than any human has a right to. But you cannot win. I am stronger, tougher. In the end, that is what matters." "Maybe," Tessa said. She was smiling. Actually smiling. "Or maybe humans have something you do not." "What?" "The absolute refusal to give up." She attacked. Not fancy. Not complicated. Pure aggression. Targeting the same spots she had already damaged. Hitting them again and again and again. Threx tried to defend, tried to counter, but she was relentless. She took hits that would have killed most species and kept coming. She ignored pain, ignored exhaustion, ignored the fact that she was fighting something that should have been able to break her in half. 30 seconds left. Threx was bleeding now from multiple wounds. His movements were slower. Tessa, impossibly, seemed to be getting faster. She jumped, wrapped her legs around his neck and used her entire body weight to twist him sideways. They both went down, grappling, a tangle of limbs and desperation. 10 seconds. Somehow, impossibly, Tessa got him into a chokehold. Her arm locked around his throat, her legs wrapped around his torso, applying pressure to arteries and cutting off blood flow to his brain. Threx thrashed, tried to pull her off, but she held on like she was welded to him. 5 seconds. Threx's movements slowed. His eyes started to glaze. He was going unconscious. 3 seconds. The timer hit 0. Tessa held on for 2 more seconds, then released and rolled away. Threx lay on the floor, gasping, alive but beaten. She stood up slowly, favoring one leg, wiping blood from her face. The room was silent. Every Draxan warrior stared at her like she was some kind of monster. 3 minutes. Tessa said quietly. "I win. You accept the deal." Threx got to his knees. Then slowly he stood. He looked at Tessa with something I never expected to see from a Draxan. Respect. Real respect. "In all my cycles," he said, his voice hoarse, "I have fought hundreds of opponents. I have never ever been beaten by someone half my size. You are no prey human. You are a warrior. So, we have a deal?" Marcus asked, stepping forward. Threx looked at him, then at Tessa, then at his own warriors who were still processing what they had witnessed. Then he started laughing. Deep, genuine laughter that filled the room. "Yes," he said finally, "we have a deal. The fleet will stand down. I will accept your terms, not because I fear the Council, but because any species that can produce warriors like her deserves respect, and I would rather have humans as allies than enemies." Marcus pulled out his tablet, already bringing up the contract he had pre-prepared because of course he had pre-prepared it. "Excellent. Let us finalize the details." I stood there, watching a human diplomat and a Draxan war master hammer out peace terms while the human's bodyguard quietly put her weapons back on, and I realized something profound. The galaxy had been wrong about humans. So wrong. They were not harmless. They were not weak. They were not prey. They were survivors from a world that tried to kill them every single day, and they had learned not just to survive, but to win against bigger opponents, stronger opponents, impossible odds. They won because they refused to lose. The treaty took another 2 hours to finalize, but it was comprehensive. The Draxans got expansion territories, trade rights, and a formal alliance. The Council got peace and a powerful military partner. Marcus got another legbusel negotiation to add to his record. Tessa got 4 cracked ribs, a concussion, and about 60 new bruises. She did not complain once. On the flight back, I finally asked the question that had been bothering me. "How did you know you could beat him?" Tessa looked up from the medical wrap she was applying to her ribs. "I did not." "What?" "I did not know I could beat him," she repeated. "He was bigger, stronger, tougher. By all logical assessment, I should have lost. But I knew I could hurt him enough in 3 minutes to make it a real fight. And sometimes that is all it takes. Show them you will not go down easy, and they start respecting you." "But what if you had lost?" She shrugged. then winced because shrugging with cracked ribs hurts. Then Marcus would have found another way. That is what humans do. We adapt. We find solutions. If the first approach does not work, we try a second, then a third, then 100th. We keep trying until something works. Your species is absolutely terrifying. I said, yeah. She agreed, but we are also your species now. Council member applicants, remember, you are stuck with us. Marcus smiled from his seat. Look on the bright side. Vecco, at least galactic politics will not be boring anymore. He was right about that. Over the next few cycles, word spread about what happened at that mining facility. A human bodyguard beating a Draxan Warmaster in single combat. A human diplomat ending a potential galaxy-wide war without a single shot being fired. 3 minutes from confrontation to resolution. Species that had dismissed humans started paying attention. Some with interest, some with concern, some with outright fear, but all of them with respect. The Council, perhaps inevitably, approved humanity's application for membership 6 months later. Full voting rights, representation. The whole thing. He also hired Marcus as chief diplomatic negotiator and convinced Tessa to train a new Council security force in her particular brand of human combat techniques. I got promoted to senior diplomatic aide and assigned permanently to the human delegation, which, considering everything, was probably the safest place in the galaxy to be. Nobody wanted to fight humans anymore, not when they had seen what just 2 of them could do. Sometimes I think about that first meeting with Marcus and Tessa, how I thought they were just tiny prey animals playing at galactic politics. How wrong I was. How wrong we all were. Humans, it turns out, are the kind of species that looks at impossible odds, at overwhelming force, at certain defeat and says, okay, let us